There are a lot of crazy theories about what this year will hold for Tesla, and Randy Kirk is the craziest of the people I know with the craziest theories, but maybe, just maybe, he's right. We shall discuss them and figure out what's going on. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla weekend. Randy's here, right there. I can see him. So, Randy, we yesterday did day one of 3 crazy days of Randy. I got you back for day two. I appreciate that we're both wearing the same outfits. It's almost like we shot these back to back. Isn't that fun? And actually, I don't know how consecutive these will be because I've got so much stuff shot between CES and some other stuff. But there will be 3 crazy days of Randy, I assure you. And actually, every day with Randy is a crazy day. Good times. So, Randy, let's jump into this. You predict in 24 the Cybertruck ramp will be far easier than expected, and the shipments will be at least 100,000. New deposits will mean that the additional lines will be put in place earlier than planned. 1 million units per year will be the new expectation. And when you consider that what this truck can do compared to others, it is hard to imagine anyone who will want a traditional pickup. Now, before I turn it over to you, I did see a funny one that said, there was a comment from a regular on my channel, Baby UFO, who lives in Hawaii and loves to complain about all things Tesla, even when they don't apply. He loves to complain that there are not enough superchargers and chargers generally. And I said, that's because Hawaii is where permits go to die. So but he was saying, well, I was waiting for a 500-mile truck for 70,000. And what am I, an idiot? I was waiting for nothing. And first of all, no, you weren't. And second of all, 500 miles on the big island. Where are you going? Around the whole thing 4 times? Come on, man. That's not. And it's not even like you're going to get regen. You're going to be going slower. So you're going to get more, just 250 miles. You're not doing 70 miles an hour in 40-degree weather in Hawaii. That is not how it works.
Not going to happen.
And someone responded to him saying, well, no problem. Just go buy one of the other trucks that are out with 500 miles of range for 70,000. So with that said, you think the Cybertruck ramp will go quicker and that new deposits will encourage them to put in a second line sooner than later. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so actually, those are the least important parts of that analysis. I think it'll go quicker than anybody expects because I think there are less moving parts. There are less things to have to figure out than there is on any car that they've ever made because they just keep making them simpler and simpler. And with the new, 48-volt system, you have less wiring and less wiring harnesses and I don't have to explain this to your crowd probably. So I think it's going to go easier than they thought and that they'll have very good numbers. Now, more important than that is that I think that we don't really have any new news that I've heard. Maybe you have. The most recent was that they were running about 10,000 a week in new orders coming in. But at some point, we'll start getting some solid numbers from the regular folks in terms of what that really looks like. I think it's going to be pretty substantial. The more trucks that are out there, the more people are going to want to buy them, the more people are going to put their orders in. And so I think that's what Tesla's waiting for. They want to see what the take rate is, and they want to see what the new orders coming in looks like. And I think both of those will be very good, and they will start to put in that second line or third line, whatever it takes to get to 1 million, because that really is probably the US number that makes sense if the truck is as good as I'm claiming it is. And quite frankly, I cannot figure out why anybody that wants a pickup truck is not at least considering and probably going to buy this truck. What's left on a pickup that's better than a Cybertruck?
So there are plenty of use cases where an electric truck doesn't yet make sense. The biggest one is towing over 150 miles. If you've got to take your horses or your dirt bikes, well, often enough that it matters. My brother races motorcycles, and to the point of tremendous injury, and he will regularly drive. He will all summer, every weekend. So 10, 15 times, drive a distance that is already cumbersome with his gas truck.
Mhm.
When we drove from Linwood, Washington to Boise, Idaho, we must have stopped 4 times for gas. It was like every 2 hours we were stopping for gas. And every 2 hours is comparable to how often you'd have to stop and charge. And a lack of pull through chargers would make that unpleasant. Pull through chargers will be coming, I'm confident, before the backlog of Cybertruck orders is exhausted, because it's going to be a little while. On the 10,000 a week, now we don't know if that's true. Someone tweeted that it was a rumor, and Elon liked the tweet. That seems to me to be closer to that suggests it may be accurate. But 10,000 reservations a week is almost a problem when you're
Yeah,
not making 10,000 a
yeah,
week.
right.
And that number, I suspect, will diminish over time, because you can't sustain an order rate like that. It wouldn't make sense on a vehicle that's not really moving in substantial numbers. I think the bottleneck would be batteries. I think there are production bottlenecks that just putting in a second line would not address, but they are all known issues, and this is a company that's very good at addressing known issues. So I'm confident that that would work out just fine. And there are use cases for people who wouldn't want it, and there are people who are just plain stubborn. But there are only so many times you can get outperformed by a tremendous margin and still feel like a manly man in your manly man truck. So that doesn't describe me, but I have met those people.
But what we do know, having never driven one, what we do know from these reviews we've already seen is you have a car that has $100,000 audio system in it that drives like a Rolls Royce, and that can do manly man jobs and also accelerate faster than any other ice truck on the road. So other than that, I don't know why you'd want one.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. Uh, Other than that, but apart from that, what have the Romans done for us? So the second item on today's crazy is the shocking sales of the 3 Plus will cause Tesla to move very fast to make the types of changes to the Y. No later than July, thinks Randy, the Model Y Plus will roll out worldwide. Crazy talk. Talk to me.
Well, again, as a marketing guy, what would I be doing right now if I had these two cars, this market, two best-selling EVs in almost all the markets that they're in, and that the sedan market is much bigger than I ever dreamed it was until you told me about 6 months ago how big the sedan market was. Well, okay, so I'm sure Elon knows too, and if he doesn't, he needs to listen to your show so that he gets the point that there's a lot of sedans being sold. So the sedan market, as we penetrate that with a lot of these 3 pluses, if I'm the marketing guy, I'm saying, okay, wow, people do like the more comfortable ride. Oh, wow, people do like having that TV in the backseat. Oh, people like having the sound, the exterior sound being reduced dramatically. Oh, this is important. The things that we did are resonating with the folks. Maybe there's also going to be people starting to talk about it online in terms of, boy, I really like how the Model 3 does these things. We really need the Model Y to do it too. So I just think that there's going to be a lot of pressure in all the normal and good ways that you need to make the changes in the Model Y as well. And I can't figure out why they wouldn't, because as you pointed out on my show the other day, or maybe it hasn't been published yet, I don't know. Who knows when these shows are coming out? But anyway, as you pointed out, they're going to get some advantages in terms of production, in terms of the similarity in the parts with the new Model 3, and that's going to reduce costs as well as make it simpler. I think that this is just another one of those cases where all the reasons would point to speed of iteration. Somebody said that Tesla moves at the speed of thought. I've had the thought. They probably had the thought. I think they're going to move fast.
That's hilarious. I I think July is too soon, but I think it will come. To get Model Y sales to the next level, there's a couple things needed. One is a price reduction. If you could drop the price by $5,000, the market would potentially double, especially if the IRA credit remains in place. That would make it cheaper than most gas sedans. With the IRA credit, it's already well below the average cost of a new car. It is not the same head turner it was. People are starting to understand that they do not cost $100,000, and all of that will help. But you're right. If I've got a choice between a $45,000, $50,000 car that does versus does not have included rear infotainment, maybe it's got the new extra speakers. The sound system in my Model Y is the best I've ever had in any car, including ones that I put thousands into upgrading the sound. Maybe 1,000 is what I put in, but this is better. And you're going to double the subwoofers. You're going to add another speaker in the cabin. It's fantastic. And there have been times when over the year they've updated it to make it, well, we've tweaked the dynamic space, man, whatever, to make it sound even better. I'm sure I would not have noticed, but somebody does, and otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Right.
So there are some things that could take Y to the next level. A price reduction, which could happen, definitely with a refresh. A interest rate reduction would do it, and just these added features that you can't get today in a car that, unless it costs 20,000 more, 30, you got to get into some pretty elite territory before you get the kind of features that are already included with the Model 3 refresh, which is a frankly affordable car.
Now, I've had people tell me that the more recent Model Ys have a better ride quality than my 3-year-old Model Y. You haven't been in my 3-year-old Model Y, but would you consider the ride quality in the Model Y to be soft and cushy, or would you consider it to be kind of stiff, kind of sports car like?
So I have a 23 Model Y long range on 19-inch wheels, and I keep the steering set to comfort mode. So I have the softest factory ride available in a Model Y, and it's still pretty bumpy. It is still, the minivan was very soft. I mean, very soft. But this is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. On long road trips, I didn't get uncomfortable or sick, but on long road trips, you're not driving around town. My town has this crazy plan where they used pentagonal concrete block, shapes on the road because some engineer told the guy who built the city, you could use an inch or two less concrete if you use these home plate shaped panels of concrete rather than square ones. And when I read that before I moved here, I thought, well, that's going to be bumpy. And it is. It's bumpy. The town is bumpy. So that was great planning. And here we are 100 years later as patches come up. In places where they've paved over it, it's still, it's the same. You can still feel it. So I would say the ride quality still has room to improve. But 19s are still very large wheels. If you had 18s, it would be even softer, but that is not a factory option at this time. So you think Juniper's coming by July?
By July.
All right. That's exciting. That's very, very fast. And as we talked about on your channel, I wouldn't necessarily see it coming the way I saw the Model 3 Fresh coming, because the parts in common are so many that the parts suppliers I know may not realize that these are Y-Fresh components because they're the same ones for the 3 Fresh.
Except the numbers would go up dramatically.
Not until it's time to go into production.
Right.
So I wouldn't see it coming 6 months out like I did with the 3 Fresh.
Exactly. Yes.
And there are people who are still saying, yeah, but it's not the Highland. It's not the Highland.
No, it's not the Highland, apparently.
We can't even predict the past. Good job, guys. By the Q1 earnings report coming up any day, the profits from energy will be big enough to catch attention, says Randy Kirk. And analysts will adjust their valuations immediately, especially with more information about the ramp coming in Lathrop and Shanghai. There'll be more capacity announced by July 1st somewhere. Talk to me.
Okay, so I'm thinking that next week, again, whenever this show comes out, but next Wednesday, the 24th, I believe it is, when Tesla reports, there will be substantial increase in energy profits, energy sales, energy storage is what we're talking about here. Not sure what's going to happen with solar, but with the energy storage, we'll see that next big bump of sales. It still will not be enough. I don't think. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's going to be enough to catch Wall Street's attention. The next quarter, quarter one, reporting in April, I believe that's going to be the day. That's going to be the time when you see this constant doubling per quarter, of the energy slope. And by then we will have Shanghai either close to, there'll be a building, there will be equipment being installed, there'll be enough information that they'll know that that is coming, and they can start to predict it. And we'll know, how is Lathrop doing? Have they gotten to their 10,000 a year 10,000 units a year completely ramped? Are they going to increase it to 20,000 a year? I think all of that will happen between now and the April 20th, roughly, earnings call. And that will be the trigger. That will be finally when the street will go, okay, we get it. We need to put these numbers into our prospective earnings expectations, and that will give the stock a pretty good bump.
So I talked with Matt Smith from Rebellionaire about a year ago, before he was with Rebellionaire, when he was still with Good Soil Investments. And I asked, when will they start adding it to their model? And he said, as soon as the revenue is substantial enough. And sure enough, the next quarter, the revenue was substantial enough, and many, not all analysts, began counting it. Now, how you could be an analyst and not look at energy or other sectors, just look at automotive and say, yeah, my price target's 200-ish. For an automotive company, 200 is much too high. You have to count these other things. I was talking with my son yesterday, and I said, if someone gave you $1,000 and said, invest in Toyota, a very, very big, very established, very reliable car company, or Tesla, which would you pick? And he said, well, Toyota's getting smaller, aren't they? I said, well, yes, they are, but Tesla's valuation is much too high. I said, what does Toyota make? And he said, cars. I said, what else? He said, hats. I said, yes, that's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Well, do they make other things? I know Hyundai makes all kinds of stuff, but I don't know about Toyota. I haven't seen other Toyota products. I know in Japan, Toyota is a conglomerate, but outside of Japan, not so much. And then I said, what does Tesla make? And he, of course, is stuck in the car with me talking enough to know the answer to that question is kind of everything. We are going to see good numbers out of Lathrop, of course. We're going to see Shanghai, not this quarter, but it will be producing this year. We know there are battery factories nearby in Shanghai. Right there is a CATL factory that is likely to be the one producing the cells going into these packs. And anywhere that you've got, Tesla knows who's got battery factories in the works, where they are. These relationships have already been established. And I think you're right. We will see either an expansion of the Shanghai plants or the Lathrop plants, or we may just see another factory entirely, especially if there's a market that doesn't like to import these without big tariffs. And if you could import all the parts and just assemble them there, that would make a whole lot of sense. Last one for this crazy day of Randy. In 24, some company will license either the OS, the FSD, or both by July 1st. And that will open the door to others who have no choice but to follow, much in the same way we saw with the NACS charging configuration adoption. Talking crazy talk, Randy. Talk me down.
All right. So I'm just really speculating here about what's taking place right now. Again, I have bought millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment and parts and supplies for my companies over the years. If I was in the situation that Ford is, or General Motors, or Volkswagen, or Toyota is right now, I would already be in conversations with Tesla. Even though they're a competitor, I'd be in conversations with them. I was in conversation at every trade show I went to. I was talking to my competitors. I always knew what they were doing. And commonly, in a conversation with a competitor, I'd be like, well, do you think you should be buying this from me as opposed to making it yourself? Or maybe I should be buying this product from you that I don't currently carry and I could just put my brand on it. I have to believe that these conversations are taking place all the time. And if they're not, I don't understand why not. I don't understand that industry apparently, but there's a lot of OEM activity taking place in the automobile industry, and there has been for a very long time where these people buy parts from one another. So I'm thinking the conversation's ongoing. Well, one of the conversations that's ongoing is what's happening with FSD. And one of the conversations that's ongoing is how hard would it be for me to switch my entire operating system over to a Tesla-like operating system where all of my electronics, all of my software is all built by me or built by a group that understands that the parts need to talk to each other. So I think those conversations are ongoing. And I think that FSD is close enough now to where somebody's going to pull the cord. And I put the date of July 1 as kind of a half year thing, and we'll see. But I think it's close.
So on that, these CEOs talk. We know they talk. You'd be crazy if you didn't. Now, you could a year ago argue that, yeah, they talk to each other, but maybe they don't talk to Tesla. Well, we now know that's not the case. The NACS conversation with Ford and others had been ongoing for years.
As we're talking, Mazda made the decision this morning. They've now, whatever, this is going to be later, of course, but several days ago, Mazda made the decision to join NEX. Yeah.
Zoom indeed. So we do know they talk. That's something that that we now know with absolute certainty. And I think the nail in that coffin was Tesla said, look, we'll do the magic dock if you're not going to adopt, but you might not like it. You might find, your buyers might find that we don't put it on enough stations, that the experience for them is not good enough, and that all we're doing is eating your lunch. So get on board. I think Magic Dock is dead because starting next year, it won't matter except for older cars. Buy a new car. It's not my fault you chose to buy one with a plug that doesn't get support anymore. In terms of part sharing, we've seen that a lot. We'll see somebody said, well, you know what, their turn signal, their door switch, their whatever, just buy it, just buy theirs, just make a phone call and buy theirs. And then on bigger stuff, they've rebadged entire cars. Toyota sells a lot of cars in Mexico that Toyota didn't build. And it's because they've got the dealer network, they've got the infrastructure to handle it, they've got the service centers. Just slap the logo on it and sell a bunch. It's fine. Chevy, I met this family who worked, they were a GM family. We will only buy GM. And then I was like, didn't you used to have a Chevy Sprint? Yeah, it's a Chevy. It's not a Chevy, my friend. Every part on that car is metric for a start. So, okay, sure. So yeah, they share parts. I think my 95 BMW had a Chevy transmission. Why reinvent the wheel? I mean, do we need a whole new factory to build transmissions for a car that's going to be built in the US? Or should we just buy something that's out there? So yes, parts sharing, entire car sharing, all that already exists. And now they're already sharing Tesla's charging standard, which is, by the way, CCS2 compatible in terms of its language protocol. That was done all along. So there are possibilities there. In terms of licensing FSD, I'm a bit more skeptical. I think companies will have the conversation, but they won't license it until it's done. They might, though, consider using it for adaptive lane control, just autopilot. And the question becomes, is Tesla willing to give them $1,000 worth of hardware with little or no margin just so they can get the data and have the possibility down the road? But if it looks like Tesla is close to level 4 or 5 or even 3, it might make sense to say, we want to put it on your car, and if your buyer turns around and buys it, it'll be the same price, but we'll give you a cut. We'll give you $2,000, $3,000 out of the 10 to 15, whatever it is at the time. Um, but the question is, how close is it? And there are some limitations in it that give me pause that it will be solved certainly by July. But I'll have a whole video about that. This has been the second crazy day of Randy. We got one more crazy day coming up. If you like these, we'll do more because he's got 50 of these that we could cover, and we've only covered like 7 or 8 so far. So what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it in them comments. Smacky, likey, hit the thumbs, all that good stuff. Subscribe. You know what you're doing. And for everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, when any of Randy's predictions come true.